We have a quorum, so welcome to the Historic Landmark Commission meeting this November 3rd. Might not be as exciting as last night's Lizzo concert, but I'll try. All righty then. We will begin with approval of the minutes. Looking for a motion to...
Motion for the approval of the last month's meeting.
All right.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? And let's go ahead and vote. And let's see. Let me have my little cheat sheet here now, because I think everybody's here. I would say yes. John?
Abstain.
Mike? Carlton?
Yes.
Amanda? Aye. It passes. Thank you. Report of the chair and vice chair. The chair has nothing. Vice chair have anything? Report of the director.
I have a couple things that the commission and probably members of the public who have come to our public meetings before have noticed is that we do have some improved security measures at the city-county building for individuals who are coming in. I see everyone wearing their badges. And and we can thank the mayor's office for that. But a few months ago, we had an incident with a staff member where the door was shut and locked, and a staff member was essentially verbally assaulted alone in the hallway. So we have to essentially stop our practice as staff after an item of going out alone with applicants or any members of the public, and we'll have security at our meetings from now on, so we won't be shutting the door, and if there's any disruption at any public hearing, we'll just pause the meeting and take care of that situation, and we let the Planning Commission know as well, but I just thought I'd make that announcement here. And I just wanted to also check and see if all the commissioners have badges. Everyone have a badge? Okay, so if you don't have a badge yet, let's get you a badge. You don't have to wear it like right at this moment, but you can work with Aubrey to get your badge. That's all I have. Thank you.
Perfect. And I neglected to actually call the meeting to order, so it's called to order. And we have approved the minutes, and we've had the report of the director. So I do not have any general public comments to share with anybody. So I guess we will move on to the public hearing. And our first hearing this evening is on the Fisher Mansion and an update. Well, it's not actually a hearing, it's an update. And we have Tyler Murdoch here to give us a briefing. Tyler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you like to have the Friends of group come up at the same time? Or would you like to have that be separate?
Oh, at the same time.
Okay, I'm going to invite our Friends of Fisher as well to come join.
Wonderful, thank you. And I just want to thank Salt Lake City Parks and Public Lands and the Friends of the Fisher Mansion for coming and updating not only the Historic Landmark Commission about all your amazing efforts, but for the public watching and just everyone in the room. Thank you so much.
Can we have an introduction as to who you two are joining, Tyler?
Yeah, so I'll go first. Tyler Murdoch, thank you for having me tonight. I'm a deputy director over our city's public lands department. I oversee our planning, our trails and natural lands, and then we'll be moving into some supervision of our new park ranger program as well. So, and I have a few friends of Fisher Mansion, people with me today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Nan Weber. I'm one of the directors of Friends of Fisher Mansion, and we are newly incorporated, and we're very excited to be here with you tonight.
Baron Gaikowski with CW Urban. I'm a project manager on the Yard subdivision, which is just on the other side of the Jordan River from the Fisher Mansion.
Great, thanks. Dan and Barron, happy to have you guys here. There's a few other members of the Friends of Fisher who are not able to join us tonight, but we're really excited to have this group forming and supporting the city and public lands as we move forward. It's been a little while since Public Lands was last here at the HLC to talk about Fisher Mansion, so I want to just give a quick overview. I know many of you are familiar with that, so I'll go quickly and get to some of the funner or more fun stuff with the project. But why is Public Lands involved in Fisher Mansion work? I think that's one of the questions we often get. The Fisher Mansion, as you know, is located at 200 South along the Jordan River, which is one of our really most amazing public assets within our West Side communities. I think that the 2014 West Side Master Plan identified that it's the cultural and ecological heart of Glendale, Rose Park, and Poplar Grove. And I think it's really an underutilized asset, and this mansion is such an amazing piece of that. The Fisher Mansion is specifically identified in the recently adopted Public Lands Master Plan that was adopted by City Council earlier this year as a site for preservation and future public use. The mansion also supports 2 of our 7 transformative goals within the Reimagined Nature Master Plan, that of reviving the Jordan River and creating, really activating that corridor in a meaningful way, and also sustaining our stories. We have many historical elements within our public spaces that often are undervalued, and one of the transformative goals within our master plan is to really begin to highlight those, and places like the Fisher Mansion begin to do that within our system. So the history of improvements, the property was initially acquired by Salt Lake City in 2006. In 2014, the city obtained a state or a federal grant that funded the seismic upgrades of the carriage house itself. In 2019, Public Lands submitted a capital improvement program application that was funded to renovate the Fisher Mansion, or carriage house specifically, not the mansion itself, but the carriage house, and turn that into office space for some of our outreach and communications, and also developing a publicly available event space or meeting space in the basement of the carriage house. In 2019, that was funded. In 2020, Public Lands invested in recreational improvements along the Jordan River and built and constructed 3 new boat ramps along the Jordan River, one of which is immediately adjacent to the Fisher Mansion. And that is now done, and work has been completed. And in 2021, we began the restoration and renovation of the carriage house. Prior to that, we were working closely with our architect on the project, who several over here and one on your board, CRSA, who worked closely with us to develop the plans for the renovation. That work is still ongoing. We have recently completed a lot of the landscaping, irrigation improvements, and many of the preservation elements of the carriage house. And we anticipate full completion of the carriage house project in March of 2023. There have been quite a few construction delays associated with that, but we're hopeful in the next few months we'll be able to wrap that up. And then moving into 2024, recently City Council allocated part of the general revenue bond that was adopted earlier this year to go towards stabilization of the Fisher Mansion itself. So $3 million was allocated, and that work will begin by our city's facilities division and engineering division in 2024. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. I want to share a few photos of some of the mansion carriage house and what we've done. If you've had a chance to tour the mansion, you know several years ago it was in very, very poor shape, the carriage house itself. We're looking here at the upstairs hayloft. So this is in the middle of our renovation. You can see a lot of the old historic beams in the ceiling. Those have been restored, the new roof, and it's really magnificent to see the juxtaposition of this old, historic brick along with all of our new improvements. You can see the loft ceiling there to the right. We have restored all of the windows. You can see through the upper office room. This will be where our outreach and communications manager will be placed. You can see the Jordan River boat ramp that was constructed there along the Jordan River. And then in the downstairs on the right, we have a small meeting space, and these are 2 new bathrooms that have been constructed as well in the basement. The basement, or the bottom floor, also has where all the old horse stable was at. believe there were 6 original stables. Each of those windows was designated for one of the horses in the carriage house. We have renovated that into a small community meeting space, and then the bathrooms are also located there. If you look on the photo on the left, one of my favorite little pieces of preservation is we have an epoxied floor drain that was where, that went into the stables. We've kept that and epoxied over it. It's really such an amazing feature of this room. And then this space is the larger community meeting space. It's about 1,000 square feet. And this space, initially when Public Lands came to the HLC several years ago, we talked about developing this space as an education center. That was not funded with our initial request. So right now we are looking to develop this space and rent it out for community meetings, Poplar Grove community councils, and different small events that can utilize this community space on the bottom of the carriage house. One of my other favorite elements of this community space is we will be laying the original Sanborn maps of the west side community of the Fisher Mansion area. This detail that you'll see here shows the original Fisher Mansion brewery that was on site with really elaborate detail of each room of that brewery. That will be laid in the community space and then epoxied over. So it's going to be a really wonderful artistic element for the community space. All right, so just as a summary, at the outcome in March, we will have 3 designated offices. Our Public Lands Ranger, Program Director, and Manager will be based out of the Fisher Mansion Carriage House, as well as our Outreach and Volunteer Program. We also have 6 designated cubicle spaces in the upstairs, and those will be dedicated for our Jordan River Park Ranger team. So if you've been following along with the development of our Park Ranger program, we have one team that is focused specifically to the Jordan River, and they'll be based out of the Fisher Mansion Carriage House. We have the small community space downstairs that can be reserved for community meetings, small events, and we are also exploring rotating exhibit space currently with the Natural History Museum and other art partners, and how we can utilize that space as more of a community benefit and activation for the carriage house. The new restrooms, and then also the outdoor event and renovated landscaping, which we have just finished this year. So if you had a chance, on October 1st, we had an event there with the Fisher Beer Garden and had about 3,000 attendees come out on October 1st and October 2nd. It was a wonderful event, and I really think that this space and this type of event is how we can, move forward in activating the outdoor space at the Fisher Mansion and the carriage house. And with that, next steps on this project, as I mentioned, we are looking for completion in March of 2023. And then the city will look to moving forward with stabilization work that was funded, and that will be run through our city's facilities division as well as our engineering division. We're really excited about the partnership with the Friends of Fisher. I think the city has really lacked a dedicated partner and community partner on this space, and so we look forward to hearing more from them and working to build those relationships. We also are working to complete the Folsom Trail, which currently ends at 1000 West, and the completion of that trail will connect the Fisher Mansion to the downtown area and the gateway on the newly developed Folsom Trail. And then the next thing after our stabilization effort is really working with the community, Friends of Fisher, to develop a visioning process for the future renovation of the mansion itself. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions from the project side, and then I'll turn the time over to Nan and Barron to talk about how Friends of Fisher is partnering with the city.
Anyone have a question? Quick question. Mike, use your.
So the large room, the 1,000 square feet room, that can be rented out for office parties, those kinds of events? Is that?
Yeah, great question. I think as it is slightly a shift from what we initially envisioned that space would be, but I think that is what we'd like to see right now is how can we have that room reservable for small community gatherings. It's not huge, but yes, it certainly would be able to be reserved for that.
Very cool, thank you.
Anyone else?
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
I love the Sanborn idea, and I love the epoxy drain. Is there still that? I have not been in since all these changes, so I kind of wish you showed the before photos, because that's when I went in, and the bathrooms look so much better than that one bathroom that was in the carriage house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But is there still that partition wall where the horse stable section, is there still that supportive wall there? Is it?
Is it
There are
fully?
2 rooms.
There are 2 rooms, yes. So there's a room with a small meeting area,
Right,
the
okay.
bathrooms, and then the larger community space. That still exists.
Cool,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, and there is, some really wonderful before photos that CRSA did when the city acquired the property in 2010. They completed a report, and I don't think that's on our website, but I requested that be uploaded today, and so that has some before and afters that are amazing.
I recall sitting on some charrette or numerous charrettes about this place years ago, and they were all ready to open up the mansion and get it all renovated, and then nothing happened. So why did they go after the carriage house first instead of the mansion, since the mansion is the star of the show?
Yeah, I mean, it was before my time, but I know that the city received a federal grant, as I mentioned, to stabilize the carriage house. So from a cost perspective, it made a lot more sense for us to look at that first and try and build support for the mansion itself. We know the mansion and the renovation of the mansion is going to be substantially more expensive than the carriage house is. And so I think that was why that decision was made.
And what's the game plan for that, to renovate that mansion?
The mansion, that is what was, the stabilization of the mansion was recommended for funding this year. So City Council and the General Revenue Bond allocated $3 million that will go to the stabilization. That's not the complete renovation, but the stabilization of the mansion.
Great. Any other questions? How about you?
Well, thank you, and again, thanks for having us here. We're really excited to be part of this whole discussion. And yes, we have been talking about the mansion for many, many years. You're absolutely correct. And as you have said, Tyler, the smaller project of the carriage house was much more in line with the amount of money and what was in line. So the mansion does need that stabilization, So our group,
Wait, when you say stabilization, what does that entail? Does that mean it's made out of Adobe and it's not very stable?
it is not made out of Adobe. It's
You're trying to earthquake?
seismic
okay.
stabilization.
Okay, great.
So our group, our newly formed group, Friends of Fisher Mansion, we are now an official nonprofit. We are residents of Poplar Grove, Glendale, and Salt Lake City in particular. So all of our energy is from our love of Fisher Mansion. And I'm going to read you our newly formed Fisher Mansion mission statement, which may be revised as we advance in our community. To preserve, revitalize, and reactivate the Fisher Mansion, the carriage house, and grounds to serve as a viable neighborhood centerpiece and as an architectural and historical community resource. So we're very, very excited about leaning toward these attributes that we're doing. Our current members are myself, I'm one of the directors, Nan Weber. Barron, of course, I think you all know Barron, right?
Planning Commission for the most part.
We're getting our foothold with David Amott, head of Preservation Utah. He probably will not stay on the board once we are fully established. Alan Roberts, most of you probably are familiar with Alan as well, historian, architect, and author. Esther Stoll, our Poplar Grove Community Chair, entrepreneur. She's in real estate. Michael James Bills, also a Poplar Grove resident. He's our current mechanical engineer expert. Tim Dyer, one of the current Fisher Beer owners, and also a Fisher family descendant. He's on our board. Clarissa Branham Johnston, community member as well, and supporter of the Fisher Mansion revitalization. So our goal is we want to work closely with whatever plans that Salt Lake City has for the properties. I say that in general, not just the mansion, but of course your fabulous presentation of the carriage house and the grounds themselves, of course. So we want to ensure that the property, historic as it is, moves forward, advances with all the things that are happening in the community. There's lots of changes happening, as you're going to hear. And so we want to make sure that we're on the same trail that the city envisions and that other developers envision around in Poplar Grove. We also want to make sure that that whole idea of our neighborhood changing, because it is, like many of our neighborhoods in Salt Lake, that it becomes an asset to Salt Lake City, not just our neighborhood, and all the users of the Jordan River Parkway. And by the way, I have to say that the river ramp is absolutely fabulous. It's the easiest one that I've ever gotten onto, by the way. Okay, so how we want to proceed, how we really envision it, is to conduct research so that we can find funding from both private and public partnerships, so that the future improvements that do happen are in the same vision that Salt Lake City has. And Barron will tell us a little bit about his development just across the river from us.
I don't want to steal the show from the gem that is the Fisher Mansion. I had the opportunity to meet with Tyler. We actually introduced on the banks of the Jordan River as we walked through the carriage house, and I was shocked. Being a Salt Lake City or Cottonwood Heights, Salt Lake County resident for most of my life, I'd never seen this building. And it was so cool to walk through and to see the historic architecture, and as far as cladding and the wonderful building and the property and the grounds, it was awesome. And very excited to be part of this neighborhood and this community. As Nan mentioned, you know, as development comes in right now, currently what's surrounding that area is a lot of industrial with Rocky Mountain, with Dominion, as they've announced and are working towards, you know, revitalizing and more or less developing that area. What a fun opportunity that we have here. As far as development, Salt Lake County and City, most of Utah along the Wasatch Front is bound by these gorgeous mountains that we have. Very, very rarely do developments have this grand area of land that they can be creative with to more or less create community. CW Urban's motto is, "We build community." And as I was introduced to this Friends of Fisher Mansion group, I couldn't be more excited to have a community focal point, a centerpiece, and what a beautiful opportunity this would be. I'm, you know, imagining all sorts of new stuff going in, but at the very center is just personality and character, and what a beautiful drive that will be for culture. As far as our mission statement, I feel like Nan covered that incredibly well. We're here to help, to access any sort of public and private relationships that we can to drive forward for the revitalization, the preservation, and the activation of this beautiful property that is the Fisher Mansion.
Any questions? Anything else?
Just a comment.
Oh, good.
As one who has been a caretaker of an historic property for 10 years and a beautiful old home that was established in 1872 and a nonprofit was established in 1966 specifically to preserve it and make it a community asset, and 50 years later it's still just thriving and big and beautiful and gorgeous and grand and historic. So I really appreciate what you are doing, and I'm on board. I'm looking forward to seeing how you progress.
I think that goes without saying. All of us wish that. Thank you so much for coming and updating us.
Thank you for having us.
And anytime you have a big update, please come back.
Will
Keep
do.
us in the loop.
I'm sure we'll be back. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we move on to the public hearing section of our meeting. First hearing is minor alteration at approximately 365 North Quint Street.
Excuse me, Chair.
Sorry?
We have public comments first.
Oh, we have public, I asked for public comments, I swear I did. Oh, well, here we go. This is on something specific. Oh, okay. All right, do we have any general comments from the public regarding anything, except these cases? And no public comments. So now we will go to the public hearing. Minor alteration at approximately 365 North Quince Street. You will note that we do not use the numbers anymore for the actual hearings. We normally whip off about 10 numbers there, and we're not doing that. So, James and Kelly Fowler, the property owners, are requesting approval of a certificate of appropriateness to replace non-original roof materials, soffit fascia, windows and door, restore siding, add new windows, restore rear addition, added porch, loft roof, dormer. Is there anything left? Here we go. The property is zoned SR1A, Special Development Pattern Residential, contributing within Capitol Hill Local Historic District. To accommodate the proposed addition, the applicant is seeking modification for additional building height. SR1A district permit buildings with a pitched roof up to 23 feet in height, and the proposed addition would be 27 feet 2.5 inches. Property is located within Council District 3, represented by Chris Wharton, and Katya Pace is our planner who will be presenting this. Oh, here we do have the number. Sorry, PLNHLC 2022000242. Katya?
Thank you very much. If somebody could help me with getting to my folder, that would be great. I'm not used to doing Mac. Sorry.
Aubrey to the rescue. Thanks, Aubrey.
Perfect. It's the second one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So this project is located at 365 Quince Street. And as you know, you already read what the proposal is. Our recommendation is to approve with one condition. And as you can see on this aerial photograph, this parcel has 3 properties. And we are going to be talking about this property here, which we're calling house number 2. And it's right here. So this is a historic photo of this property. It was constructed as a store and was used as a store for many years, and then it became a dwelling unit. This is what it looks like right now. You know, some of the existing conditions is that the historic doors has been modified, as well as the window. There was an addition that was created here before 1950, and the addition is wood, and it was covered with a stucco. And so here are some, you know, picture of the rear of this property with the addition. So the proposal is, like has been said already, is to restore some of the historic elements of this home, such as the soffit and fascia window trims and windows and doors, restoring the adobe wall, then add some openings on this south side of this property here, and we're going to show a drawing of that, and restore a new addition with a loft roof. So the difference between the existing addition and the proposed is this area here. And with that, a modification for additional building height. Yes. Uh-huh. So here is what the proposal is for restoring, the window, restoring this transom that existed here, restoring the size of the window, which was, right now it's a lot smaller. And also what the applicant is asking is, instead of having, a basic four panels on the window, to create a little bit more panels just for security reasons because it's so close to the street, and also create, oops. Okay, I really should, okay, all right. So, yeah, creating this awning window here. Then for the soffit and the fascia, it's been covered by the stucco, and so reinstating that, and then for restoring the siding on the adobe wall, when the stucco was put in place, the openings for windows and doors was done with a foam molding. So the proposal is to remove that and replace it with stucco, but not replace the stucco on the addition, and just redo the addition altogether. One of the main things that we're looking at, and it has come to the commission for, is opening up these 4 windows on the original property. Right now, there is no openings because it was created as a store, and so on the inside of this property, there were shelf spaces. So, one of the big reasons for not having openings originally. So this is usually something that it's not approved administratively. And the reason we're supporting that is because this is an adobe structure, and the ventilation from these proposed windows would help maintain the structure, the adobe, because of that ventilation, which is very important for an adobe structure. Also, the addition has been requested, has these windows here, as you can see. Staff finds that the windows should match the windows that are being proposed for the original structure, and have it, because it will be visible from the street, these windows. The other request is to restore the addition, but this whole section here would be, something that is going to be added to what already exists. And as you can, it is a little bit busier than the original structure, but it's also placed on the rear of the property, where we have more flexibility. The height, as you were asking about, is right here. The additional height would be this area right here, and it's approximately 4 feet and 2.5 inches. But at the same time, as you can see, this the height, here's the grade and there's a substantial grade change. So the additional height still allows the addition to be lower than the original house. So pretty much our recommendation is to recommend to approve this certificate of appropriateness, request for a certificate of appropriateness with the additional, with the modification of the height. But with the condition that the south side has new window, has windows that would match, and this is where the condition is that would match the windows that are going to be placed on the historic part of the home.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
I do, actually. When we say adobe, what material is that made of in this case?
Good question, and I will have the applicant respond to that
I have
because
that same question. All right, let's bring the applicant up if there are no further questions for staff. And this should be Kelly Fowler. Hello, Kelly Fowler.
Let me just go to the end here so you can.
Thanks, Katya.
Situated.
You have 10 minutes, Kelly, and it sounds like from this application, the staff is recommending approval except for the windows.
Yes.
How are you
Okay.
feeling about that?
I feel great about that. I would like to expound a little bit because I think you ought to understand. I set my timer there.
Oh, we're
Okay.
timing you, don't worry.
Okay, good. Okay, let's see, let me pull up my little, oh, whoops, what am I doing?
I think we're all just curious about Adobe, and
Yeah, okay, so to start off with that, I have some pictures that we'll get to in just a second.
Do you
but-
have your microphone on?
How do I?
Get it really close so we can,
Right here?
yeah,
Okay.
we're recording this.
Just to address that question before starting, there are some pictures of the deteriorated state of the inside of it showing that it's actual Adobe. This is, I think, probably the 4th Adobe house that we've worked on. It's not soft-fired Adobe, maybe actually more than that. You'll see pictures of the first of the 3 houses in time, built in the 1860s. It is soft-fired on the outside and actual true dried in the sun Adobe on the inside. This one, both layers of brick are dried Adobe, grayish looking, 5 inches by 11 inches, completely fall apart if you leave them out in the rain. And so true Adobe. And in fact, it's kind of fun because it's one of, only a handful, from what I understand, less than 30 or 40 left in the city that are still standing. So it is real Adobe, except for the wood addition section on the back. So as a result of that, the engineering that we've had to have done with Glenn Palmer is our engineer. He, it's basically building a house within a house because of all of the moment frames and Simpson strong walls and all of this kind of stuff that are going to be required to get it back to functional. So backing up just a little bit, thank you guys for being here and listening to this petition, and thanks, Katya, for your presentation. I appreciate it. You've spent hours and hours and hours, I know, reviewing this and coming out and everything else. Just to let you know, at its heart, just like the Fisher Mansion, this is an adaptive reuse proposal. It is a property that was built as a store. It wasn't converted to a store by the original builders. And this is the first time that it will ever be used as residential on the main floor. In the basement, it was residential, converted in the 1950s to a studio apartment in the basement. But upstairs, there's no interior walls, there's no kitchen, no bathroom, no nothing. That's also no windows. The north wall abuts the house next to it, which we call house number 3 because we ordered them in time of build, and which is why there's no no windows on that side. And then on the south side, of course, we had the shelving that we just talked about. So when we bought this property at Quince, we knew it was going to take every bit of experience we had trying to bring it back, all of them, because every kind of problem you can imagine existed. There was crumbling adobe, crumbling foundations, and this is on all three houses. There was a sewer pipe running from one of the houses through the laundry room of the house next to it. There was a bathroom in house number one, the house built in the 1860s, that was up on a pedestal about 4 feet high to try to get slope. And the pipe coming through into the other house, through the other house, was literally held up by rocks. That's how they got the slope. So, and of course, the brick was disintegrated. It was fun. So in 2019, they were legalized as all residential structures, but until right now, they still have not been actually, the number two has not been converted. So this is what it looked like when we bought the properties. That's them originally. You can see in this front house there on the right, it's kind of hard to tell in that picture. I don't know if I can enlarge it, but the columns are gone. It wasn't very ornamental, but the columns were gone. Those both, the front window and the little window next to the door, were original. I took the classes that Cindy talks about a lot to restore them, so they're restored. And that's what we've done with any window that's in any of our properties that we can fix, we do fix. So all this hogwash you hear about them not being efficient and not being able to be fixed, it's ridiculous, and I'm glad you guys consistently decide the way you do regarding windows, because you can make them even more efficient than current windows just by using storm systems and things like that and understanding what you have. So let's see. Let's go down here. So this is the back house, and I'm just showing you these so you can get a sense of who we are and what we have done. That's the back house. That's the one built in the 1860s that had soft fire brick on the front. You can see right here, a prior owner had tried to stabilize it by throwing down a bunch of concrete. All it did was serve to spall the brick above it because it's very, very soft brick. So this is, again, another view of that house number one on the left, house number two, the subject house in front of us, and you can just see the bare corner of house number 3. So this is some of the example of you can see that soft fire brick. This again is house number 1. So now we're going back to this is what it should look like. So when we started working on them, that's what we did. So the permissions, we didn't have to come before you on these others because there wasn't anything that required commission approval. But so you can see that we put back the columns, we restored everything, and we painted it really cute, if you ask me. Okay, and so this is the back. This is the before and after of house number 1. You can see the exit of house number 3, and then just a bare bit here on the left of the subject house, house number 2. So there's another view of...
Are these houses connected?
They touch. They're not connected. They never did blast any kind of openings between them.
So this isn't considered a triplex?
It's a weird thing. Honestly, if you were to put it in today's terms, they'd be townhouses.
Okay.
Because they touch, but they don't intersect. There weren't openings between them. So, yeah, well, we're talking, number 1 was 1860s, number 2, which is what we're talking about today, was 1870s, and number 3 was 1919. So for most of the first part of their lives, they didn't touch. 1 and 2 were there. The store was up front, the house was out back, and it wasn't until 1919 that the center one was built that touched both. So if that helps explain. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit here, because to me, the history of Marmalade and this property in specific is special, and I feel like it requires a lot of care in bringing it back to where it needs to be. The history of Quince is connected to the Rock House around the corner on 174 West 4th North, if some of you are familiar with that. It was built in the mid-1860s for Anne Underwood Flower by her husband John, who owned it and most of Plot 5 at that time. She immigrated to Utah when she was 40, which is also when she married John. And when John married Mary Hughes 10 years later or so, who was 12 years younger than Anne as his second wife, Anne divorced him almost immediately. The divorce was recorded a year later. She was 54 at the time. And at that time, she had to prove that she could survive on her own for a year for the divorce to be granted. But not only did she do so, she showed that she asked the court to award her not only the house, but a big chunk of plot number 5, which she had orchards and wine grapes growing on. So the court granted that request, allowing John to move into the smaller parcel, which was our place at that time called 363 Quince. And Anne and John and his new wife, Mary, lived as neighbors only a few yards away from each other until their respective deaths. Anne lived in the Rock House until the late 1890s. Mary ended up dying in 1909. Then the Flowers built house number 2 up front. This is the subject house, as their little cafe that she ran. Later, Henry and Karen, known as Marie Thiegeson, bought the whole complex, and together with John Thiegeson, they're the ones who built the final house, house number 3. Marie ran the store herself. And in the Danish fashion, if you look back at that red brick house, they built in this little part right there so that it had a sign high up on the wall that said Mountain View. That was the name of their little complex. An example, a very rare example of kind of a signage on a residential property, which I think also makes it kind of unique. And I brought my little coin up here because when I was digging in the backyard doing work, I found a coin from Sweden dated 1783 with Gustav III
Wow.
on it. So,
Your 10 minutes, let's wrap this up.
okay, sorry.
No, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
And I'm actually asking you, or giving you some extension here, because
Okay.
I'm loving this story.
okay. Well, let me bolt through because there are a couple of important things that you got to know. These are befores and afters of the inside of that house, by the way, just so you can kind of
Were
see
those
what.
beams in there?
Okay,
Were those beams in there?
the beams were not in there. No, we added those. Okay, so current challenges. This is where we get into. There's the basement of that house right now as it sits. And so you've got crumbling foundation, you've got not only that, but under level, you have adobe, which is a big no-no, so that's got to be taken out and replaced. You have the adobe structure where the wood part of it connects is completely falling apart because somebody came in and cut everything. You can see up here where the old beams used to be, and these posts are basically, you know, they're not even 3 feet wide anymore, which is the standard for an adobe corner. It needs to be 3 feet. More pictures of the basement. You can see in this left side the crumbling, adobe falling in over the lower window. This is above that window on the main floor, and again, the crumbling there. This is the big front window. Someone tried to stabilize it with an I-beam that they put in with foam. So, yeah, and you see the wood across there, that 2x4, that's bolted through to the outside, again, trying to stabilize it, but it's not obviously working. There's the bottom of the window. That's how we got the size for the replacement window. That's above the door where they blocked in the transom. And this is both the south side and the north side, that same foundation wall. They did the same thing above it in the where the adobe wall comes in. So you see how short those adobe walls are on both sides. Okay, so the windows in the wood frame section, honestly, I'm not married to that idea. I totally understand Katya's reasons for it. I would just point out on the Sanborn maps, that was an addition that was done sometime before 1950. It does have real lumber, not actual 4-inch lumber. It's dimensional, like 3 and a half-inch lumber. So it wasn't old. And here's an example of another home in the same neighborhood with the original different windows. You've got the 2/2 double hungs, and then next to them you've got the kind of a casement style window, and that's that house after. So, and the only reason I'm really arguing for the windows we've done is because I bought those off of KSL. They're unused and uninstalled, and they were cheap, but I could resell them. So You guys make your decisions. Those are window profiles. Okay, so back to the front window. The way that I came up with the possibilities for, that is included on the plans is, again, safety. So, and some additional ventilation. You see on the left there an example of a store window, a few more examples of store windows. These were the ones I went by to try to come up with something. The height issue, I know the height issue is always a big deal for people, and myself included. So Katya doesn't have this because I just finished this yesterday. Someone was out of town for 2 months. But here are every house on Quince. So starting back here at 311, 319, 325, and on. This is the backs with a little picture of the front, so you can see almost all of them are one level on the front, 2 or 3 on the back. Warm Springs Park fault line runs along the back of all these properties. That's why there's such an extreme slope. One of them actually, this third one here, has a pool, so hopefully no earthquakes cause a problem there. But anyway, so here's another look at all of them. This second one is a newer fourplex built in 1956. Polly is actually here, that's her house. And that's our house, and then the others. Now, when you add them all up, I went and got a laser measuring tool, and these are all the houses, and they add up to 28.92 average. So technically, since we're 27 and 2.5 inches, we are within the average of the block face anyway. But I thought that might help the public and you guys understand that this isn't a crazy kind of thing. So. I've got other pictures to justify things if you guys have questions about stuff, but really that's about it.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Is that, there's a window existing on the south facade from the basement, or is that a door?
Only on the basement. Yep, that little guy on the basement.
Is that staying, or is that
That
in
is
need
staying.
of replacement? Or?
Yeah, it is actually not an original window. It's because you can see in the framing of it that it's smaller than what the frame is, but it is old. It's definitely not a new window.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you. We may call you back, but
Okay.
all right. Let's open the public hearing. And is there anyone from the community council here? Polly, are you here from the community council representing? You're here as Polly. Groovy. I just have one card, and that's you. So you want to come up and do your 2 minutes? Identify yourself for the record.
I will do that. My name is Polly Hart. Can you hear me, or do you want this?
Yeah, that'd be better.
My name is Polly Hart. I live at 355 North Quint Street.
Is that on? Is your microphone on?
It is?
They're all on.
Okay.
You just gotta get
Maybe
up in
just
there,
a little
Polly.
closer, Polly.
Okay.
Thank
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. My name is Polly Hart. I live at 355 North Quint Street to the south. I have lived there since 1994. And during the previous owner's tenancy, I saw a lot of expanding foam go into this house. You saw that over the window. It was everywhere. The house was a wreck, and actually, after he passed away, I contacted Kelly and James and said, this house is going to come on the market. Please, please buy it. This is, I think, the third building that they have restored within a block of my house, and everything they do is spectacular. I will tell you that the work they do is beautiful, but it's not your job. You are not the taste police. You are the Historic Landmarks Commission, and your job is to make sure that things that get done are done within accordance of the Secretary of the Interior's standards for historic preservation. And Kelly started to steal one of the things I was going to say, but she didn't finish. When she showed you the masonry in the back house and how it had been damaged by the previous owner, not only did she and James go out and find matching bricks, but Kelly went onto the web and researched historic mortar recipes because current mortar is too hard for this historic soft brick. And she wanted to make sure that the bricks were repaired with mortar that was soft enough that would not damage the bricks. That's how they do things. When James fixed the windows, he took them out, he took them apart, he repaired, not replaced, put them back together. I can't urge you enough to approve what they're requesting.
Thank you. Any questions for Polly? All right. Anyone else wish to speak towards this? We are going to have you actually go over to that little plastic booth. I've just been informed. Yeah. I don't know why. It looks like you're a contestant in something. Yeah.
I do feel like a contestant.
All right. Identify yourself, please, for the record.
My name is Lucy Schoenfeld.
All right.
I am the tenant of House 2 at 365 North Quinn Street.
Okay.
And James and Kelly are also my landlords. And I've come to speak in approval of this project. I live in one of their properties. I've seen James and Kelly throughout the years and the great amount of effort that they put into preserving these historical properties because I live in one. So to that effect, I just wanted to approve this hearing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any emails that staff received regarding this? Yes?
Kacha may know.
Email from Lucy that I
Yeah.
just added one email that I received today from Lucy, so you
All right.
heard her.
Groovy.
But it was in support of this project.
And we have another one. Go ahead and read this one.
The staff report has a couple. One from Andrew Carey. I'd like to provide a comment on this application. I am more than supportive and encouraged by the remodel being presented at this address. James is incredible and I know it will look fantastic. The building as it currently sits looks terrible and James' improvement will be a great thing for the neighborhood and the street. 100% supportive. Please let me know if you need any additional information or comments. His wife and him live at 368 North Quinn Street, which is just across the street.
Great. Didn't answer my question. Where are you getting the Adobe brick? Yeah. Are you going to make it?
Actually,
You have to, sorry.
I'll come back up. So actually, two sources, one of which would be the opening for the new windows will allow us to have a lot of brick to work with because that's...
You're repurposing the brick.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And we, like I said, this isn't our first one, so we have been saving. Every time we take anything out, we save it. And so we have a stack of Adobes in our garage right now. Yeah, we have, I mean, I have to say, I feel so seen. I really appreciate people's comments. I did not solicit any, didn't ask anybody to comment. But that mortar, we actually sent ours along with a piece of brick to have it analyzed by a company in Pennsylvania. So they're the ones who gave us the recipe for the mortar that those bricks would require. And you have to also use the
That's amazing.
Adobes that have broken to make the mortar for, you know, what you're doing new, because it's not just hydraulic lime mortar that you get, you know, from wherever. You have to mix it with the Adobe that the bricks are made from, because that's how they did it originally. Otherwise, you have thermodynamic issues that create problems. But I'm kind of a complete nerd on this stuff / neurotic, so it's sort of my thing. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Anyone have any other questions? I'm going to close the public hearing, and the applicant, that's you, you can offer a rebuttal, but I don't think anybody's butting you, so no rebuts for you. All right? So we'll go into executive session and discussion. Commissioners? I'm going to say I was planning commissioner for 8 years. I've been doing this for, I don't know, a year. I have never heard of such a thing. Who are these people? What you're presenting here is astounding to me, of the quality of the work that you intend to do, and I'm in awe of this. I've driven by this place so many times, like, what a wreck. And the fact that you're actually going to redo this, I applaud you. I can't imagine the expense, but that's a different thing. Commissioners, any other questions?
I would
comments?
echo that. You know, it's living in the area and watching how these old homes are purchased by people who actually love them and try to restore them in the manner that, you know,
Yeah.
this is an 1870s house. You're trying to fix it up like someone from the 1870s would have done it. And it shows. And it's heartening to see that you know, that's happening in our neighborhood. So bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would reiterate that and simply say that it's a credit to you that you look at these types of situations and think of the opportunity rather than run away in fear of what the potential could be, because we've all been there at some point who live in historic houses. There is one item that I do have some reservation about, and that is the 4 windows going into the side of the existing building. The other commissioners may be able to provide some context to this. I find a bit of irony in the statement in the staff report that suggests that adding the windows, which in my view tends to impair the historic quality of the building, is being justified as a way of preserving the historic quality of the building due to the adobe. My personal preference would be not to have those 4 windows in the original wall and to maintain the original integrity and appearance of the building as is. I'm not aware of any adaptive reuse projects where a building has gone from commercial to residential and the commission has approved a significant change in the appearance of the building in that nature, but I could be wrong on that. So I would invite the other commissioners to give their thoughts on that. That would be the only reservation I have, though.
Which south side are you
The
talking
south
about?
side, yes.
Okay. All right, commissioners, more discussion?
I would agree. I'm with you in terms of altering the original historic building. I understand the potential benefits of helping to preserve the adobe, and I think I lean towards that side of the argument. That was the first thing that I saw when I went through with the project was, you know, oh, that's a pretty significant change. However, if the adaptive reuse means the preservation of the building for, you know, down the road, I think that that tips my hand in terms of the window element. So, and I have to say, I'm not sure why you bought this property, but I'm glad you did. And like the other commissioners, I applaud you for the extraordinary work that you're putting into this. I'm a little jealous.
Well, stop by, and you won't be.
I'll see you. I'll see you soon.
Given that, any commissioner want to put forth a motion?
I'll propose a motion to approve with conditions, with conditions consistent with the staff recommendation. Based on the information presented in the discussion, I move that the Historic Landmark Commission approve this application with the conditions listed in the staff report with no modifications.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Vela. And we need a second for that?
Second.
All right, we have a second, and I'm going to do a roll call for votes. So, let me get out my special pen here so I can keep track of what I'm doing. All righty. Let's go with Amanda.
Aye.
Carlton.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
And I'll say aye, so it passes unanimously. Congratulations. And thank you for your work.
Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciated the history, too. Thank you.
Love that part.
Yeah, that was great.
You ask how I wanted to take something like this on, it's because of that history.
That's awesome. Perfect. All right. Moving on, we have minor alteration for painted brick at approximately 217, 219 West, 300 North. Request by Joshua Eaton of JL Eaton LLC, the property owner, for minor alteration approval to paint the exterior brick of the house located above stated address. The property is under enforcement for having painted the brick without a certificate of appropriateness, and the matter has been referred to the HLC for a decision. The 2006 District Level Reconnaissance Level Survey, wow, RLS, found the building to be contributing to the character and integrity of the Capitol Hill Local Historic District. Property is located within the SR1A Special Development Pattern Residential Zoning District and Council District 3, represented by the one and only Chris Wharton. Staff is Aaron Barlow, and this is case number PLNHLC 2022. 00877. Aaron, you have the floor.
Thank you. So we'll jump ahead 100 years from what we just went over into the post-war era. So this is a request to keep some paint that was painted on the property at 217 to 219 West, 300 North. It is located in the Capitol Hill Historic District, same district. And the issues that come up is the painted masonry. And
Kelly and Katya, you don't need to stay if you want to. All righty. Thank you.
And the issue is that the paint is not appropriated according to the standards of approval and to the design guidelines for building materials, specifically masonry. So staff is recommending that the commission deny this request. So some context, this area here, this corner of 300 North and 200 West, is in a part of the district that saw a lot of growth after World War II during the housing shortage at that time. It seems parallel to what's going on today. And you can see this line, 200 West, kind of divides the district. There are obviously historic older homes in this area, but a lot of that development happened during this time in the lower part of the district. And this area in particular, it was a number of stacked duplexes that were built here of a similar design and style that was new for this time period, to have an outdoor entrance, to have those corner windows. You can see here, and the type of brick that was used, the striated brick with the white mortar. So here's a photo of what it looked like during the last reconnaissance level survey. It's the red brick with the white mortar, an older photo from 1955, the house in similar state but with fewer bushes and with snow. Here's the comparison that I wanted to bring up. Specifically on the left, on the left, this is the painted brick on this existing house, and on the right is the brick from the house next door on 200 West. You can see the mortar was white. There's that same brick pattern, and that's an important character feature of these homes that were built during this time. And I want to just kind of go over that contributing status, because this question always comes up. Why are we talking about mid-century homes? The reconnaissance level survey specifically points out this post-World War II period. It includes some of the Depression as well, but a lot of that growth happened 1940s to the 1960s, when these new housing types, these new homes were being kind of filling in the spaces in the district. In a lot of cases, they were demolishing existing homes, but it is a significant period for this district. It is an important example of the type of brick. We talk about the windows, the outdoor entrances, and it was a kind of a planned community addressing that housing shortage. So staff's recommendation, the paint is contrary to the relevant preservation standards and guidelines, so we are recommending denial. If the commission recommends denial, staff, meaning me, will work with the applicant to kind of through the process, so they find a good contractor, so that they're testing the little areas to make sure that the method of paint removal is appropriate. We won't leave them in the lurch. I will work with them through the process so that they can get to compliance.
What's the most common remediation that you would recommend for brick of this era?
I am not an expert of that. Based on my research and who I've talked to, if you know David Richardson, does a lot of brick work in the neighborhood. There's this gel you put on, and then it's laminated strips. You let that kind of react with the paint, and it's kind of a removal. It's the soft, there's also other ways that, just depending on the contractor, there are a lot of methods, and we'll make sure to test those before we do anything major. Luckily, this type of brick, unlike what you talked about in the last item, is a lot harder. It's a lot sturdier than Adobe, 100 years in brick technology. You can see it here.
When was it painted?
3 years ago, in 2019.
Okay.
The enforcement case was only recently, and actually it was painted before the applicant owned the property.
Oh.
Yeah. And part of it also might, because enforcement cases are complaint only, is likely in response to another case in the neighborhood.
Interesting. All right. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Okay, Aaron, that was a pretty good presentation if there's no questions.
Great.
All right, let's have the applicant come forward.
Eaton, are you here?
And the applicant is Josh Eaton and someone else.
Suzette Eaton.
All right, Suzette Eaton. Make sure you speak directly into the microphones, and you have 10 minutes.
So my name's Josh Eaton, and my wife and I bought the house about 3 years ago. And thanks for hearing us out. We live in the historic district of the Avenues, so we understand the importance of historical homes, and we've put a lot of love into this house that we bought a few years ago as an investment property. But I'll let my...
Yeah, to continue that, we live in an 1890s home and feel some of the pain of the soft brick and so forth. We value that, and we understand, why we're here. And what we didn't know was that we were in the historic district when we bought the house. So that was a little bit of a surprise. And we knew that the brick was newer, 1954 in this case, and that it was hard and it was a different kind of structure than what, if we were to paint our unpainted Avenues 1890s house, that would be tragic. And we've learned a lot of this along the way from that house. But I do feel like this is a little bit different scenario since it's 1954. Today, I talked to Coral Brzezinski. I hope I'm not butchering her name. I don't know if you know her. She was I guess one of the principal people in charge of that 2006 reconnaissance level study that Aaron was talking about. And I had emailed her, and it took her a while to get back to me, but I talked to her today for quite a while. And she looked at the house, and she sent me all the information, actually, that Aaron had up here. I hadn't seen that. And we talked about a couple of gray areas with this house that we think might have some impact on your decision. We want to keep the paint not because we like the way it looks. We think it's attractive. It softens the home a little bit, and it does make it a little bit different from the other duplexes around that corner. We've talked to the owners of those, at least the one on the corner. She asked if we wanted her to come and support this, and foolishly we said no, but maybe in hindsight we should have done that. But a couple of things that Coral said it's not, it's important to know that this is not in the National Historic District. It's only in the local historic district. And it's on the boundary. It's on one street off of the boundary. And I didn't know that either, because on the maps online, I noticed that the maps are not quite correct. And the correct maps that I got from Coral were a little bit different, and she sent some copies for me. When the district boundaries were updated in 2006, structures that were 50 years and older were eligible to be contributing properties. And so at that time in 2006, this property was 2 years into that cutoff, if you will. So it was kind of automatically going to be pulled in no matter what, because it was inside of that. Since we were built in 1954, the cutoff would have been 1956. Does that make sense? She said that she really liked the windows the way they originally were. They have changed a little bit, but the opening is the same. And she also liked the brick. But in a direct quote from her email today that she sent me, she says, "I do not believe the paint color alters the historic character substantially." She did say that she thought it was still okay for it to be contributing, but she didn't feel like the paint was an issue on the property. She said she noted that the property next door, which if you look at the old picture, the earliest picture, I don't know if you can pull that up, you can see that house next door is an actual really old house. That's probably 1890s, 1900. And that one is fully painted. The really cool duplex across the street is fully painted. A lot, and of course you see that everywhere. I think in that neighborhood, people don't really realize that that is not a good thing to do. And I don't know how in the future we could help get that knowledge out there, but let's see where else I am. I also noted that in the guidelines that Erin's talking about, the design guidelines for historic apartments and multifamily buildings in Salt Lake City, Chapter 2, Building Materials and Finishes, it says painting the masonry should be avoided. It doesn't, and for obvious reasons, like we've talked about, especially with the old brick, and no doubt that's what they're talking about for the most part. But this is not the same kind of brick. It's also not forbidden. It's not, the word choice is avoided. So that's something that's maybe a little bit softer. Also, Erin mentioned that precedent is one of the things that they look at as far as making a recommendation on a piece of property. And if a decision is being made on precedent, I just want to note that this is not the same as the Quince Street property, not remotely so. It does need to be cared for. We have cared for it. We've updated it. We've completely redone the interior to reflect what tenants right now would like, and so we'll have tenants in it all the time. It's filled. They've been happy there. The tenant has expressed real unhappiness that the paint's going to be taken off because he doesn't like the building next door with the red brick. So we have tenants in there that are upset. I'm hoping that that doesn't cause additional problems for us with our tenants, but that's one of the reasons that we painted it, is to make it attractive for residents. I think that is all I have. I was going to show you some pictures, but they're the same ones that Erin had, so that's it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Yes, no? When you purchased the property, your title report said it was in a historic district. Oops, missed that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, everybody does. So no questions, then we have a member of the public that would like to speak, so if you'll step away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Cromer wishes to speak. Over there in the
box.
Price is Right booth.
Price is Right. I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
So my name is Cindy Cromer, and I've been doing this for so long that I have these deja vu experiences. So in 2019, you heard a case at the Joanne Apartments with the same brick and the same color paint and the same color roof, the exact same colors. It was also an investment property. It's in the same historic district. It's the same era of construction, same rake-faced brick. And there is an analysis of the paint removal that was completed as part of your hearings on that petition, that enforcement issue. You heard that in June 6th of 2019, September 5th of 2019, and October 3rd of 2019. And it didn't take me long to find them because I realized that it was in person. So I just skipped over the whole pandemic and went back to 2019. The differences between the Joanne apartment and this building is that this building is considerably smaller than the Joanne Apartments, and it's not on the corner. But otherwise, the similarities are really striking. And at issue here, I think, is the contributory status of this building and whether it would be retained with the paint, because the determination of contributory status will affect numerous other buildings. The applicants have argued that this really isn't that great a building and so forth. And so I would urge you not to take an action that affects more than this property, because there are obviously almost identical properties around it. I am concerned that the painting may have been done before these applicants acquired the property. That's critical. They are investors. And we all got notification in the historic districts of the location of our properties. Very expensive postcards.
Thank you. Let's see. All right. Any questions? Anyone else wish to speak on this? Hello. Go over to the Price is Right booth. Come on down. State your name for the record.
Kelly Fowler, 321 North Almond. So Quince is just right down the street from you guys, and I pass by that all the time. It is a monumental bummer that you guys ended up having to buy a place that then turned out to have these issues, and maybe there's something with, insurances and title and all of that where, since they were out of compliance then, that there's some, recourse there. I own quite a few rental properties as well, and right now I don't know how much the economic impact is going to be from a white building versus a red building, but I agree with Cindy. The problem is there, this is a kind of a mid-century building, and there's so many of them around like this. I can name 3 or 4 just within 2 blocks that, if you start allowing it, even though it hurts you guys, it's just a situation that is only going to get worse. And the person shows up and says, but they were allowed to, and it puts the commission in a bad spot because you guys are right. It's right on the edge of whether it's historic or not. When I first saw it listed, I was kind of like, that? But they are. The mid-century modern is a huge thing these days. And I would argue that there are enough white painted, black windowed houses in our areas that one less won't hurt anything. Unfortunately, I feel for you guys. I know the expenses involved, but we have the rules for a reason. I hate to say that, but I am opposed to this being allowed to remain painted. I watched them do the Joanne. It's how I leave my house every day, and it was a big project. And back then, I would have thought that these people might have seen that happen and decided maybe I should ask somebody before I paint this thing, but they didn't, and here we are, and it's a bummer. I feel for you, but I have to support the city's view of this being unallowed, not allowed.
Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak or ask questions? All righty. The applicant is welcome to come back and offer a rebuttal. It's my word of the night. I like it. Rebuttal. Rebut.
I can appreciate all the comments for sure. I understand that. the paint came off of the
Joanne.
the Joanne, that's what it's called, after this building was painted. So that, because we saw that happen too after we owned it, and that was not pretty. We have called, I can't remember the name of like the people that are doing the update on the stone on the temple. I can't remember that.
Abstract.
Yeah, we called Abstract and had them give us a bid on it, and it was astronomical. So, yeah, we feel what's happening. Do you have any other questions for us?
Any other questions for the applicant? Nope. All right, so we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we're going to go into executive session. I have a question. This was just logical to me, and I know the answer is very simple, but we often talk here about street facing. So like if someone came in and did all vinyl windows and we said, no, you have to have wood windows. So we have them do the street facing windows. On the major front.
What's visible from the street.
Right, so
And
in
the
regards to
secondary.
paint, could they just take off the front paint? Or do they have to do the whole house? Look at you, boss, because I've never asked this question before.
So for enforcement of windows, we're looking at the primary facade and those on the secondary facade that are, significant and visible from the street. So in that context, I will look to management for further interpretation. It would need to be all those building facades that are visible from the street, which that east or north. I get confused in this neighborhood because the mountains are now north and not east. But the north facade of the building against the driveway is very visible from the street. So at the very least, it would be the two facades there, the front and that side one.
Michaela?
That is such an interesting question.
Uh-huh. Well, I want to remind the applicant, no matter what happens, you have the right to appeal in this process, but it's definitely an education for all of us, I must say. But I've never logically asked that question to see how we could handle it, because it is insanely expensive to remove this. So, yes, more questions, thoughts?
I kind of want you all to discuss it, and I'll jump in.
Okay, all right. Discuss.
Sorry. To me, it's there's a difference between windows and painting brick, because painting brick is something that will actively damage the historic building over time, whereas windows, it's more of, at our level, it's more of an aesthetic question and durability rather than a maintenance question, if that makes sense.
And just kind of to add to that too, like removing windows. Removing windows is also removal of historic materials, right? We're just chipping away at historic integrity of the building as well. And I agree with John's points there. I mean, I think it's like the structural integrity and damage that paint does do to brick, right? This isn't a veneer.
Yeah, this is structural.
This is structural brick. And also just a character-defining feature of this era of building type, which is a period of significance for Capitol Hill. So I'd say on those 2 points.
Commissioners, other questions, discussion? Well, then I'm looking for a motion.
I just want to say, with enforcement cases, which we all hate, I like to look at it as, would I approve this as a certificate of appropriateness if it was not an enforcement case? If they were showing us a rendering of the house painted white rather than a photograph of the house painted white. So that's
Okay.
kind of how I like to approach this.
Would you like to approach a motion?
Sure. In 1 second.
And that is really how we should be looking at any enforcement case that comes, as difficult as it is, folks,
I got it.
for fairness.
I think it's got it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion. consistent with staff recommendation based on the information presented and the discussion, I move that the commission deny this application because the proposal does not comply with the standards necessary for approval.
All right, and Commissioner, thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right. Any discussion? Then we shall go ahead and vote. And let me get out my little pen here and do this again. All right, so we'll start with Amanda.
Aye to the nay, is that correct?
Pardon?
Is it aye to the nay?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes, so you would.
Yes to the no?
Yeah, so you would vote yes if you
In the
want.
affirmative to the proposed motion, aye.
Okay, Carlton?
Aye.
Mike? Aye. John?
Aye.
Wait. And me, aye. The motion passes unanimously. And remember, there's an appeal process. Thank you all. And you're welcome to go home and put on your jammies. All right. What's next here? Thank you. Next is major alteration for an addition at approximately 1551 East Sherman Avenue. Barbara Larson, the property owner, is requesting approval for a major alteration within the Westmoreland Local Historic District. The requested major alteration, I'm saying that because it's in caps here, it seems important, is for an addition to an existing house located at the above stated address. The proposed addition is a second-story attic addition located towards the rear of the house. The subject property is in the R1 7000 single-family residential zoning district with Council District 6, represented by Dan Dugan. And our contact here with the staff presenting tonight should be Nanette Larson. This is case number PLNHLC 2021-00786. Nan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a major alteration request, as you said, for a new attic addition on a historic structure, and it's located at 1551 East Sherman Avenue.
Right.
The subject site includes a single-family house that's contributing to the Westmoreland Place District, which is the first district. It's the first streetcar subdivision in the state of Utah. This house was constructed in 1921 in a colonial revival style, and the original house appeared to be a single-story home with livable attic space. In 1990, let's see. So in 1990, the addition was approved on the second story, and it also allowed an extension on the rear of the house. The original structure and the 1990 addition both have cedar shake siding with a wood soffit and fascia and asphalt roofing. And the structure is listed as contributing in the Westmoreland Place District, according to the latest survey in 2010. And on these photos, you can't see the 1990 addition, but later on you'll be able to. So the attic addition will be on the northwest portion of the house and will only partially be visible from the street, which is why it's being brought to you today. The addition will include 360 square feet and is set back from the rear property line about 60 feet. The setback from the west and the side property line will meet the zoning standards in the R1 7000 of a 6-foot setback, and the 6-foot will be attic addition will be stepped back from the historic structure. The requested attic addition is about 19 feet tall, and I believe the R1 7000 allows for 28 feet. This addition will be slightly shorter than the original house. So these slides, you can see the 1990 addition, which is that dormer type of style addition on the second floor, and then kind of how it extends to the rear as well. That's all the 1990 addition that was approved.
To stop you, I could barely see this from the street, so we just drive by these properties in advance. And it was hard for me to figure out what addition is going to be added to this. Is it going to connect to that wall up there on that dormer?
Yes. let's see. So it's highlighted here. Looks like can you see my cursor from here?
Barely. But that yellow area, is that the current dormer?
That's the proposed dormer.
And where's the current one? Circle that with your...
That would be, I don't know if I can circle, but if you can see my cursor,
yeah,
this is the existing dormer.
Okay.
So the existing dormer is a gabled dormer, and it will still slightly be gabled, but it will have not as a steep grade.
And so when I'm looking at this picture, the upper left-hand side, will it go to the left of that dormer or the right of that dormer?
It is, so this is the 1990 edition, and it's to your right.
Okay,
is
that's what
the
I thought.
proposed.
Yeah.
So on this page, all of the bolded lines are the proposed addition. Are you able to see that okay? Okay.
So on the photo on the lower left, that is the area where it's being built onto?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it will probably, you can see my cursor, it will probably be about here, where the dormer ends. And so this section where it's more flat, it will have an increased angle. So you can see that here. And then this gable will still slightly be a gable, but it won't be as steep. And this is the 1990 edition. So there's not a major alteration to the original structure. So what's also proposed is, well, is that clear? Do I need, okay, perfect. So what's also proposed is the alteration of the existing windows on the 1990 edition. So instead of this arched window that's separated, it will be a picture window that's more square, and this will match the proposed addition. And that's true of the side facade as well on the attic addition. It'll be a more square slider window, and this is more of a vertical picture window. And I'm just making sure that I explained everything to you that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, so the proposed addition will have the same building materials as the existing cedar shake siding, a wood soffit and fascia, and asphalt shingle. And staff is recommending that the Landmark Commission approve the major alteration request for the attic addition. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions. And Barbara Larson is also here, and she's prepared for a brief presentation.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? All right, let's bring up the applicant. You have 10 minutes to do your song and dance.
Hi, my name's Barbara Larson. I'm the homeowner, no relation to Nanette. But I am very appreciative.
That's suspect right there.
On my behalf or on behalf of the commission. And I also thank you for reviewing my application.
Can you come into the microphone a little bit? Sorry.
Sorry. I want to say that the addition that was actually designed to comply with the regulations or rules of the district.
1990? The 1990 edition?
My proposed addition.
Oh, okay.
Was arrived at with the work of the architect, and also we brought in an engineer to see how things could actually be structured over this 1990 edition. And it was designed so that it would be in compliance with the rules of this area, which I don't have anything further to say. If you have any questions?
Did you own the home in 1990?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
So it was a previous owner, previous edition?
I think it's probably back a couple of owners.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you. And do we have anyone wishes to comment? Cindy Cromer?
My name is still Cindy Cromer, and I wasn't planning to speak, but this neighborhood, this wonderful neighborhood, was not yet a historic district in 1990. But you do need to know a little factoid about this historic district. There are about 70 homes in Westmoreland in the historic district. There were maybe 3 homeowners when the historic district was adopted who weren't gung-ho about the concept, but this neighborhood is so cohesive and tight that they went along with what the majority, the overwhelming majority, wanted to do. It's worth mentioning since you probably didn't know that.
Thank you. It is a very precious neighborhood, and some neighborhood that we're all very proud of in our city, I must say. All right, Will, I'm going to close the public hearing because I don't think you have a rebuttal, do you? All right. So we're in executive session. Any questions, comments, commissioners?
I can start off, and I would just say that, you know, it's a respectful addition. It satisfies the, you know, the height, the setbacks, all of that, and then every one of the standards it complies with. The only 2 that it doesn't comply with aren't applicable. It feels like a respectful addition to a historic house, and it feels like it's being done appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
To your point earlier, you can't see the previous edition from the street. And it's, yeah, I think it's I agree with Mike that it's a very well done addition to an addition.
Yes. Additionally, anyone else have any comments?
I would just agree to the previous comments and that I think it's in keeping with the historic district. So kudos.
All right, well then I'm looking for a motion.
I will make a motion.
Perfect.
I can get it bigger. Based on the information presented in discussion, I move that the Historic Landmarks Commission approve this application with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will tally the votes. Amanda?
Aye.
Carlton?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I say aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And I believe we don't have anything else, any other business? Then I move to close the meeting. Thank you, commissioners, for your work. Thank you, staff. And we will be here next month. What's the date on that one? December 1st. All righty. All righty. December 5th. 5th.